All right, 10 years. 10 years later. 2013 MacBook Pro. It served me well for a decade. When I got this, it was the only computer I had. So at the time, I got sort of like a mid-spec'd out one, not the most spec'd out one, but it was 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 SSD, Retina display, has a i7 quad-core processor, and it served me well. And in 10 years of owning this, I did have to replace the battery 2 times. I did replace the bottom cover, which used to be really scratched up, but the battery's been replaced 2 times, and it's been kicking for 10 years. The only problem I ever had with this, with in addition of the batteries being replaced 2 times by me, DIY, there was some sort of recall from Apple that something about the anti-reflective coating coming off, and I remember up here I had some really bad peeling of anti-reflective coating. So there was a recall that allowed users to submit their MacBooks back or send their MacBooks back, and I got a brand new screen. So I mean, it's been great for 10 years, and here I am, fast forward into the future, and this is what I'm going to do. Now, one thing I did forget to mention is that for the last 10 years, I had this very premium Tech 21 case protecting my MacBook, you know, from a couple drops here and there. And more or less, you know, it's been in pretty good shape. So here we are, 10 years later. I got the space gray version, so it's a little bit darker versus this silver version. Let's open it up for the very first time. A little protector here. And we'll just kind of let it turn on. So this is not a review. This is just an overview of, you know, somebody who's going from a 2013 MacBook Pro to a 2023 16 MacBook Pro. So as I mentioned before, 10 years ago, this is all I had. I didn't have anything else. So at the time, I did invest in doing sort of like a mid-grade upgrade to this. I think at the time this came with a 256 SSD. I upgraded to a 512 when I bought it. The base version came with 8 gigs of RAM. I made sure I upgraded this version to 16, and it served me well for those 10 years. In those 10 years, I have grown. So I now work from home. You know, I have 2 computers. This is actually my work computer. This is my personal computer. I have my work laptop down there. It's my ThinkPad. And I have a custom PC that I've built. So I have a, you know, RTX 3080. This is my workhorse. This is what I use to do, you know, my gaming. Now the MacBook Pro is a very powerful machine. It can do a lot of stuff like content creation, you know, video, stuff like that, like editing YouTube videos. I've edited YouTube videos on this 10-year-old MacBook Pro, and I've edited it on this machine over here, and this machine is very, very fast. So I really want to discuss the reason why I decided to choose a base version of the 16-inch laptop when there's a bunch of other options out there. There's the MacBook Air, there's the 14-inch. Why did I decide to get this version, the base version, among all the other laptops? So first things first, I obviously don't need or have the need to have a lot of RAM or a lot of storage like I did before. If this was my one and solely only laptop or my only computer, you best believe I would be upgrading this at least to the mid-tier. At the minimum, I believe I would probably have upgraded this to a 2 terabyte SSD rather than a 512. This comes with a 512. This also comes with 16 gigs of RAM, and I would have upgraded this to 32. This essentially has very similar specs. The 2013, 16 gigabytes of RAM. 2023, 10 years later, still 16 gigabytes of RAM. 10 years ago, I had a 512 SSD. Here I am, still having a 512 SSD. For 10 years, this has served me right. It fits my needs. I don't need that much storage. I don't need that much RAM. A MacBook Air, in theory, would have probably been a better choice for me. But why did I choose a 16-inch then? For 2 things, and 2 things that really, really gets me is how I use my laptop. I use my laptop mainly for content, for media content, for viewing movies, videos is what I use it for. This is overkill for that. You don't need a MacBook Pro for that. A MacBook Air, heck, an iPad could do that for you. The reason why I chose this is I wanted the best screen and the best sound out of a laptop, because I do watch a lot of movies, a lot of Netflix on my laptop. I usually, you know, when I'm away from my computer, I usually will sit down on the couch or lay down in bed and have this laying on my chest, have it pretty close to my eyesight. And I like to have the best quality visual and the best quality sound. Would an iPad Air do everything that I need? Yes, it would, but it wouldn't be the best screen, it wouldn't be the best sound. So that's sort of why I decided, let me get the best quality screen and sound that I can get with the base version, since I don't need all the other bells and whistles. And then it comes form factor. For over a decade, I have used this 15-inch form factor that I'm very comfortable. And before I had this form factor, back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, I always had, at the bare minimum, a 15-inch laptop, whether it had been a Dell or I also had another Apple. So I'm very comfortable with this. My wife has the 14-inch. It's a smaller, more portable laptop, which is great, but I'm not looking for portability. I'm looking for immersive content. That's where this 16-inch comes to play. For me, it's filling that niche. It's filling in that gap. And here's my gap. Here's my powerhouse. And I have a really nice OLED Samsung S8 Plus. And when I'm traveling, and I usually take this with me, I never take my laptop anymore with me when I travel. I usually take this with me because it fills in that gap. It has great quality sound, has great visuals. It's top heavy. It doesn't really work well with me when I'm trying to watch content at home, when I'm sitting in bed watching movies late at night trying to go to sleep. This gets very uncomfortable. It just, you know, it's very flip. I can never get the angle right. I can never see the keyboard at nighttime. But that gap between having a powerhouse and media content on the go, this is my media content at home. All right, so really quick comparison, same form factor, weight, just by hand. This one is a little bit heavier. This feels a little bit heavier in the hand versus the old one that I'm replacing. Screen wise, it's hard to tell on camera, but this screen looks awesome. This is a really good screen, by the way. It's a Retina display, but this just looks so much better. This notch, I'm not liking it, but I hear that you get used to it. Trackpad is ginormous. I mean, huge compared to, yeah, like, wow. I mean, let's look at this again. From my pinky to my index, it's much smaller. I mean, and I always thought this was a big trackpad. Typing, I don't know yet because I haven't used it. So I know for a couple years MacBook came up with different versions of the MacBook 16 or 15-inch. So this is a really good and easy transition for me, because I know that before they got rid of a lot of ports. They had Touch Bar ID, they had all these other things. They got rid of the MagSafe, and they did several changes throughout the years. And then to kind of go back to some of the roots, for someone like me who's been holding out for 10 years using this because it just works well with them, this seemed like the best time to switch. So MagSafe is back. So for me, going from MagSafe back to MagSafe, not a big change. The ports are a little bit different, where it went from USB-A now to USB-C, but it still has different ports, and that's okay, because nowadays a lot of devices now use USB-C, and I don't have to use an adapter anymore like I was using with this one. It has an SD card reader and HDMI, just like I have today, HDMI and an SD card reader. And here's the other thing, this is their power brick. And one thing I can do is, using my old power brick over here, I can actually remove this and use this cord and connect it to the new power brick. So now I have this extension, which unfortunately Apple doesn't give you with the new one. So now that I've had some time to use this MacBook, I can definitively say that the brand new one, the 2023 version I have here, and potentially most likely also the 2021 version, has really great speakers and awesome screen. The display is just, it's bright, it's dark, it just gives you this lot of like HDR contrast. It's just awesome. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a 2K display, so this is also a very sharp display, but it's 10 years old. You know, fast forward to today, it's just the sound and the video quality is awesome. So let me do just a quick comparison on sound. So let's listen to the 2013. Same thing on 2023. I mean, this thing is just awesome. I'm surprised that the type of sound that comes out of this laptop. I mean, obviously it has 2 speakers, but I believe it has subwoofers, and it just has different range. You just hear highs and lows all at the same time, whereas this one is just a even pitch. It doesn't get that loud, and it's just, you know, what I've used for the last 10 years. This is the main reason why I bought the 16-inch version of this. I could have definitely gotten the MacBook Air, and it would have been $1,000 cheaper with a pretty crisp screen, albeit a smaller screen, much more portable, and okay-ish speakers. But I already have something like that. So where did this fit in? So for me, this really comes to lifestyle, habit. For many, many years in college, before I even had all this stuff, I always just had a laptop. Now that I graduated to big 32-inch screens, this is great for my computer needs, but I always reverted back to my laptop, you know, when I'm laying down in bed and just relaxing for the day. This has been my go-to product for the last decade, even though I have a tablet that can fill that niche. It's just it's awkward. It doesn't really work so well, you know, when sitting on your lap, when you're sitting on your chest, when you're sitting in bed. You know, having a hinge and being able to move it and let it sit there is awesome, and having that weight, knowing that it's not going to fall down and you can just place it. This is what I've used, and it's become a lifestyle. So essentially what I'm trying to do is continue that lifestyle. Here I am in 2023. They have that 16-inch. Now it's overkill for me for what I need it for. I don't need all this power, but what I really, really want, and what I really, really do need, and having a really good screen and really good speakers is all I want. You know, if they would have been a 15-inch MacBook Air with a really good screen and speakers that may not have all the bells and whistles of a MacBook Pro, I would definitely get it. That's probably what I definitely would want, but they don't have that. So by default, I got the base version of a MacBook Pro. So hopefully some of this information was somewhat interesting or useful for folks out there interested in this product. Thank you.